delighted today to be joined by Professor Helen Partridge, who is the Pro-Vice-Chancellor Teaching and Learning at Deakin University. And before that, she was the Pro-Vice-Chancellor Education at the University of Southern Queensland and was for a while there my boss up at USQ. So Helen's got a real passion for open education practice, and I'm just going to chat with her a bit about that today. So Helen, open education practice may mean different things to different people. What does it mean to you?
Thank you, Michael. It's a real pleasure to be able to have a chat to you today about this topic. It is something that I'm very committed to, and I think it's something we in Australia could spend a lot more time exploring and engaging with. What does it mean to me? That's a great question. I'm probably going to say inclusion. When I think about open education practice, it is very much from the inclusion lens. So I very much take the view that anybody and everybody should have access to quality education, and they shouldn't be limited by barriers such as cost or location. So to me, open educational practice is really about an approach to education that doesn't have barriers. It's also very much, I think, principles or philosophies about how we as individuals, as people, go about producing, sharing, learning from, and I guess adding to or building upon knowledge. So I take the view that open educational practice is a practice that's grounded in partnerships, in agency, in empowerment, and ultimately in justice.
Okay. So Western universities have a perspective on that. It might mean something different to those in more underdeveloped countries or less developed countries. What role can Western universities play in that? Okay.
I think we need to play a role of genuine equal partner. So we need to engage with anybody from around the world who's wanting to engage and talk about the concept of open educational practice and build culture and practice in that space. We can do that by sharing, by listening, by learning, by contributing, by supporting. I think we can also do that as a partner by ensuring that there is an equal level ground playing field, as it were, so that no matter what institution you're from or where you are in the world, your experiences, your voices are valued and listened to. I'd also hope that as a partner that we would also be very aware of our own conscious and unconscious assumptions, that we don't come to discussions with others around the world thinking that just because I'm from a particular university or for a particular country, that my approach or understanding of open education is the only one or is the right one. I think that as an equal partner, as a genuine partner, we've got as much to learn from conversations and discussions with others as we have to give to those conversations and discussions.
Cool. No, that's a really important point. So to a great extent, though, we need to think about moving mindsets in Western universities. So that openness becomes front of mind, not an afterthought. How do you think we could do that?
Yeah, okay. I guess it's about, in many ways, making open educational practice easy to do, easy to engage with. And like any educational change process that you're going through, I think we need to make certain we've got a shared language, a shared sense of vision, a shared sense of purpose, a shared sense of understanding why open education. I think we need to approach it in such a way that we're working in partnership with our staff, the students, so that we're not doing something to them, but rather we're working with them to bring about their sense of agency and empowerment and ultimately ownership of being part of, not just part of, but actually also driving the open educational agenda and practice that we want to see happening in our universities. I also think we probably need to be very mindful of the pressures of change, and that we put into place the right support for staff to be able to engage and to develop their awareness and capacity. Looking internally, there are lots of things perhaps going on in our own institutions, be them policies or procedures or systems or technologies or our business processes that might be an inhibiting factor. So it might be preventing people from easily engaging with and becoming open in their educational practice. The other thing I think would be very much, let's work together on this. So instead of it just being an institution trying to, move forward and in this space, I actually think we probably have greater strength if we come together.
Cool. So, me as an individual academic, should I be publishing all my stuff in open education journals and things like that?
Look, it's always a balancing act, isn't it? Because universities do love their, citation rankings and their ERA rankings. The reality is there's a lot of publications out there that are open access, that are high quality and do allow that citation to go. So look, it's actually, I think, being very mindful of what audience do you want to influence, and being very aware of the role you play as an academic in a university. And we do need to meet the research agenda as well as the teaching agenda. So it's a tricky balance.
Yeah, indeed. I had to just mute myself because a plane went overhead, believe it or not. Anyway, any last inspirational thoughts, Helen?
I actually think 2020 has been quite an interesting year for everybody. Personally, our lives have been, rocked all over the place. But if I look across the university sector in Australia, I really do think this is a potential watershed moment for us. We've proven to ourselves that we can be quite nimble, that we can question those sacred cows. I think also across the sector, we are seeing a stronger awareness than ever before that our students are people with complex lives, and that their experience of being a student, experience of studying, is as much a socio-emotive one as it is a cognitive one. And so as a universities, I think more and more moving forward, we do need to look at our students as whole people and look at their wellness and well-being. And I think open education practice is actually a way forward in that space.
I might just extend that thought a little bit while I've got you. So where does that sit in relation to things like MOOCs and, and credentialing of those type of things into a student's life?
Yeah, good question. So I guess what students are really perhaps looking for in many ways is greater flexibility. So instead of, the old, how can I put it this way, instead of the university in the life of the student in the life of the university, perhaps it's the university in the life of the student. So students have, many of our students are working full-time, they have caring responsibilities, they have a lot going on. So how can we embrace greater flexibility to give them a greater sense of agency and control over how they engage in their studies? Openness is certainly one way to do that, as is things like MOOCs or credentialing and badging. And there's actually, I'm really interested to see where we go more in that space in the sector.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about your hallmarks and things like that down there, where people can evidence their practice and what they've done and things like that. So that's, in a sense, that's a kind of open practice as well, isn't it? It is.
And I think it's also tapping into that whole view of not just lifelong learning, but life-wide learning as well. And I think they're becoming more and more, prevalent, and more universities are starting to really acknowledge that, okay, we need to be present in those places as well.
Cool. Look, thanks so much for sharing a few minutes with us. It's been a delight to see you again and talk with you. And wish you all the best down there in Victoria, and hope you come out of lockdown real soon, eh?
I hope so too. Thank you. Appreciate the conversation. Thank you, Michael.